It was a bright, sunny Saturday morning in a little place called Oakwood Heights. This was a quiet neighborhood where everything looked nice and neat. The birds were chirping happy songs in the trees. Kids were running around, laughing and playing games like tag or hide and seek. The grass was green, the houses were pretty, and it seemed like the perfect day except for one thing. That one thing was me, Jake Carter. Yep, I'm the guy who was about to shake things up big time. Now, I'm just a regular dude, okay. I'm not super tall or super strong or super anything. I'm the kind of guy you'd walk past and not even notice. I live in a small house with a little front yard. My house isn't fancy, it's just a normal place with a red door and a couple of windows. My yard? Well, it's not so perfect. The grass is patchy, which means some spots have grass and some spots don't. It's kind of messy, like when you spill crumbs on the floor and don't clean them up. But here's the thing, I didn't care about that messy lawn. Not one bit. And soon, nobody else would care either because I had a big, sneaky plan brewing in my head. See, nobody in Oakwood Heights knew it yet, but I was about to turn this boring little neighborhood upside down. Upside down like when you flip a pancake in the air. I wasn't going to just sit there and let things stay the same. Nope, I had a secret weapon up my sleeve. Well, not really up my sleeve, I don't wear long sleeves in the summer, but you get what I mean, right? I had something hidden, something tricky, something that was going to make a lot of people really, really mad. And maybe a few people would think it was funny, too. Want to know what it was? Don't go anywhere, I'll tell you soon, I promise. Picture this, it's Saturday morning, and I'm standing on my porch, sipping some lemonade. The sun is shining, and the air smells like flowers and fresh-cut grass. Across the street, my neighbor Mr. Jenkins is watering his plants. He's an older guy with gray hair and a big smile. He waves at me and says, "Nice day, Jake." I wave back and say, "Yep, sure is." Down the road, some kids are riding their bikes, zooming around like little race cars. Everything feels calm and happy. But inside my head? It's not calm at all. Inside my head, I'm thinking about my big plan. I'm thinking about how I'm going to surprise everyone in this quiet little place. Now, let me tell you a bit more about Oakwood Heights. It's one of those neighborhoods where all the houses look kind of the same. They're not exactly the same, but they're close, small, neat houses with tidy yards. Everyone here likes things to be perfect. The lawns are always mowed, the bushes are always trimmed, and the flowers are always bright and pretty. People here don't like messes. They don't like things that look out of place. And my patchy lawn? Oh boy, it was definitely out of place. People would drive by and shake their heads. Some would even mutter stuff like, "That Jake guy needs to fix his yard." But I just smiled and kept sipping my lemonade. They had no idea what was coming. Here's something funny, I wasn't always the guy with the messy lawn. When I first moved here, my yard was okay. Not great, but okay. The grass was green enough, and I'd mow it sometimes. But then life got busy. I started working more, and I didn't have time to pull weeds or water the grass every day. Slowly, my lawn turned into a mess. Little bald spots popped up where the grass wouldn't grow. Weeds started sneaking in, tall and spiky. It looked like a jungle, a tiny, messy jungle right in front of my house. And that's when the trouble started. That's when they started noticing. Who's they, you ask? Oh, I'll tell you. They are the HOA, the Homeowners Association. That's a fancy name for a group of people who make rules for the neighborhood. They're like the bosses of Oakwood Heights. They decide what you can do and what you can't do with your house and yard. Want to paint your door blue? You have to ask them. Want to put up a swing set? Better check with them first. And if your lawn isn't perfect? Watch out, they'll come knocking on your door faster than you can say oops. The leader of the HOA was a lady named Karen Thompson. Yep, her name was Karen, and she was exactly what you'd expect. She had short hair, a loud voice, and a clipboard she carried everywhere. That clipboard was her weapon. She'd write down every little thing she didn't like about your house. If your trash can was out too long, she'd write it down. If your dog barked too much, she'd write it down. And my lawn? Oh, she wrote about that a lot. Every time she walked by my house, she'd stop, stare at my yard, and scribble something on that clipboard. Then she'd look at me with her grumpy face and say, "Jake, you need to mow your lawn. This is a nice neighborhood." At first, I didn't mind too much. I'd just nod and say, "Sure, Karen, I'll get to it." But I didn't get to it. I'd forget, or I'd be too tired, or I'd just rather sit on my porch with my lemonade. And every time I didn't fix my lawn, Karen got madder. She'd stomp over and say, "Jake, this is your last warning." Last warning? Huh? She said that, like, 10 times. I started to think it was funny. But Karen didn't think it was funny. Not one bit. And soon, she'd make sure I knew it. But here's the thing, nobody knew, not Karen, not Mr. Jenkins, not the kids on their bikes. I wasn't just sitting there doing nothing. I wasn't lazy like they thought. Nope, I was planning. Planning something big. Planning something sneaky. Planning something that would make their jaws drop and their eyes pop out. I had a secret weapon, remember? And it wasn't a lawnmower or a bag of grass seed. It was something way cooler than that. Something that would change everything in Oakwood Heights. Can you guess what it was? No. Well, stick around, I'll spill the beans soon. Oh, and before I go any further, I've got a quick question for you. Have you ever had someone tell you how to live your life? Like, maybe a teacher said, "Sit still," when you wanted to wiggle? Or a grown-up said, "Clean your room," when you just wanted to play? I bet you have. Drop your answer in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Because trust me, you're going to relate to what happens next in this story. Karen and the HOA? They were about to learn that telling me what to do was a big mistake. Let me set the scene a little more. That Saturday morning, I was feeling good. The sun was warm on my face, and my lemonade was cold and sweet. I leaned back in my chair on the porch, watching the neighborhood buzz around me. Mr. Jenkins finished watering his plants and went inside. The kids on bikes zoomed past, yelling, "Wee!" A lady named Mrs. Lopez walked her tiny dog down the street. That dog was so small it looked like a toy, with a little bow on its head. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed boring. But I knew better. I knew that boring was about to turn into bonkers. See, I'd been thinking about my lawn problem for weeks. At first, I thought maybe I'd just mow it and make Karen happy. But then I thought, nah, that's too easy. I didn't want to give in to her bossy ways. I wanted to do something different. Something wild. Something that would show everyone I wasn't just some guy with a messy yard. I was Jake Carter, and I had ideas, big, fun, crazy ideas. And that Saturday morning, as I sat there with my lemonade, I knew it was time to stop thinking and start doing. My secret weapon was ready. My plan was set. And Oakwood Heights? It was about to get a whole lot less quiet. So, what was my secret weapon? Was it a giant robot to scare Karen away? Nope, but that would have been cool. Was it a magic potion to grow perfect grass overnight? Nah, I'm not a wizard. It was something simpler, something sneakier, something that would make everyone talk about me for weeks. Want a tiny hint? Okay, here it is. My plan had to do with my lawn, but not in the way anyone expected. Curious yet? Good. Hang on tight, because this story's just getting started, and the best part is coming up next. Okay, so the real trouble kicked off with the HOA. That's short for Homeowners Association. They're like the bosses of the neighborhood, grown ups who make rules and tell everyone what to do. Imagine if your teacher didn't just run your classroom but also told you how to set up your bedroom at home. That's what the HOA was like. They acted like they owned my house, my yard, and even my whole life. And trust me, they weren't fun bosses. Nope, they were picky, bossy, and super annoying. The leader of this bossy group was a lady named Karen Thompson. Oh boy, Karen was something else. She wasn't just any regular person, she was the worst. Picture this, a tall lady with short brown hair, always wearing a frown, and carrying a clipboard everywhere she went. That clipboard was like her best friend. She'd hold it tight, scribbling stuff down all the time, like she was keeping a list of every little thing I did wrong. And to her, I did a lot wrong. Why? Because of my lawn. Yep, that patchy, messy lawn I told you about. Karen hated it more than anything. Every single day, it seemed like Karen was on a mission to bug me. She'd march down the street, stomp, Stomp, stomp with her clipboard in hand, looking for trouble. And guess who she found every time? Me, Jake Carter. As soon as I stepped outside my little house, there she was. She'd stop right in front of my yard, put her hands on her hips, and glare at me. Her eyes were sharp, like she was trying to zap me with a grumpy laser. Then she'd open her mouth and bark orders like a big, loud dog. "Mow your lawn, Jake," she'd yell. Or, "Your grass is an embarrassment." Sometimes she'd point at my yard and shake her head, saying, "This is awful, Jake. Fix it." It didn't matter what I was doing. If I was grabbing the mail, she'd yell. If I was sitting on my porch with a snack, she'd yell. One time, I was just tying my shoe outside, and she popped up out of nowhere like a ninja. "Jake Carter," she shouted, her voice loud enough to scare the birds away. "This lawn is a disgrace. Do something about it." I looked up from my shoe, and she was standing there, her nose all scrunched up like she smelled something stinky. She'd say stuff like, "This is a respectable neighborhood, Jake. We have standards." Respectable standards. All I could think was, "Lady, it's just grass." At first, I tried to be nice. I'd smile at her big, fake smile and nod my head. "Okay, Karen," I'd say. "I'll take care of it." But here's a secret, I didn't mean it. Not even a little bit. I wasn't going to mow my lawn just because she said so. Why? Because inside, I wasn't smiling at all. Inside, I was mad. Really, really mad. Like when you're playing a game and someone keeps changing the rules to make you lose, that kind of mad. My stomach felt hot, and my hands would curl into fists. I was boiling inside, like a pot of water bubbling on the stove. But I didn't let Karen see that. Nope, I kept my cool on the outside. Smiling, nodding, acting like everything was fine. Why was I so mad? Because Karen and the HOA didn't just bug me, they judged me. They looked at my messy lawn and thought, "Oh, Jake's just a lazy slacker." They acted like I was some guy who couldn't keep up, like I didn't belong in their perfect little neighborhood. Lazy. Me. Ha. They didn't know me at all. I wasn't lazy, I was busy. I had a job, friends, and stuff to do. Mowing my lawn every 5 minutes wasn't at the top of my list. But to Karen, that didn't matter. To her, I was the guy with the ugly yard, the guy who didn't fit in. And she made sure I knew it every single day. Let me tell you about one time that really got me steamed. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was coming home from work. I parked my car and hopped out, just happy to be done for the day. The sun was still up, and the air was warm. I was whistling a little tune, feeling good. Then bam, there was Karen. She came marching across the street so fast, I thought she might trip over her own feet. Her clipboard was flapping in her hand, and her face was red like a stop sign. "Jake," she shouted, loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. "I've had it. Your grass is a total embarrassment. Everyone's talking about it." I stopped whistling and looked at her. "Everyone?" I said. "Who's everyone, Karen?" She puffed up her chest and said, "The HOA. The neighbors. We all agree this lawn is ruining Oakwood Heights." Ruining Oakwood Heights? Seriously. It was grass, not a giant pile of garbage. But Karen didn't care. She kept going, waving her clipboard like a sword. "You need to mow it, Jake. Right now. Or else." Then she turned around and stomped off, leaving me standing there with my mouth open. That "or else" part stuck with me. Or else what? What was she going to do, kick me out? Fine me? Yell even louder? I didn't know, but it made me mad. Super mad. I went inside my house, slammed the door, and plopped down on my couch. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about Karen and her stupid clipboard. She thought she could boss me around forever. She thought I'd just give in and do whatever she said. Well, guess what? She was wrong. Big time wrong. Because little did she know, I wasn't going to play her game much longer. See, while Karen was busy yelling and glaring, I was starting to get an idea. A sneaky, tricky, awesome idea. I wasn't going to let her win, not without a fight. My lawn might have been messy, but my brain? Oh, my brain was buzzing with something big. I wasn't just some slacker who'd roll over and give up. Nope, I was Jake Carter, and I was done smiling and nodding. Karen thought she had all the power, but she didn't know what was coming. She didn't know I was about to turn everything upside down. Let's talk about how it kept getting worse. After that Tuesday, Karen didn't let up, not even a little. The next day, I found a note taped to my door. It was from the HOA, written in big, angry letters. "Dear Mr. Carter," it said. "Your lawn is not up to our standards. Mow it by Friday, or you will face consequences." Consequences. There was that word again. I crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash. Friday, huh? Fine. I'd show them something by Friday, but it wasn't going to be a mowed lawn. Then, on Thursday, Karen came back. This time, she brought a friend, some guy named Bob from the HOA. Bob was short and round, with glasses that made his eyes look huge. He didn't say much, just stood there nodding while Karen talked. "Jake," she said, "we're serious. Fix this lawn, or you're in big trouble." I looked at her, then at Bob, and smiled. "Trouble, huh?" I said. "Okay, Karen. We'll see about that." She squinted at me, like she didn't trust my smile. And she shouldn't have, because that smile meant I was up to something. Inside, I was still boiling. Every time Karen yelled, every time she left a note, every time she glared, it made me madder. But it also made me smarter. I wasn't going to let her push me around forever. I had a plan, a secret plan, and it was growing bigger every day. They thought I was lazy. They thought I'd just give up. Oh, they were so wrong. I wasn't going to play their silly game anymore. I was going to change the rules. And when I did, Karen's clipboard wasn't going to help her one bit. So, there I was, stuck in the middle of this mess. Karen and the HOA on one side, me and my patchy lawn on the other. The tension was building, like when you stretch a rubber band tighter and tighter. Something had to snap, and it was going to be big. Karen thought she had me cornered, but she didn't know the truth. She didn't know I was ready to fight back in a way she'd never expect. What was my plan? How was I going to get out of this? Stick around, because things are about to get wild. So, weeks went by after Karen started her big bossy campaign against me and my messy lawn. And guess what? Her nagging didn't stop, it got worse. Way worse. It was like she turned into a grumpy monster who wouldn't leave me alone. Every day felt like a new battle. She'd march up to my house with her clipboard, her shoes stomping on the sidewalk, and her voice loud enough to wake up the whole street. "Jake, mow your lawn," she'd yell. "This is getting ridiculous." Ridiculous? Huh? She didn't know ridiculous yet, not even close. Then she started doing something new. She didn't just yell anymore, she left notes. Little pieces of paper taped right to my front door. I'd come home from work, tired and ready to relax, and there'd be a note waiting for me. They always said stuff like, "Mow your lawn, Jake, or face a fine." A fine? That means money. I'd have to pay money if I didn't do what she wanted. One note even said, "This is your last chance, Jake." Last chance? She'd said that a million times already. I'd rip those notes off my door, crumple them into tiny balls, and toss them in the trash. But every time I did, I'd smile a little. Why? Because Karen thought she was winning, but she wasn't. Nope, not even a little bit. The neighbors started joining in, too. Oh yeah, it wasn't just Karen anymore, it was a whole team of nosy people. I'd walk outside, and I'd hear them whispering behind my back. They'd stand on their porches or peek out their windows, talking about me like I couldn't hear. "Look at Jake's yard," they'd say. "It's a jungle." A jungle? Okay, maybe my lawn was messy, with its patchy grass and tall weeds, but a jungle? That's a bit much. I mean, there weren't lions or monkeys running around, just some scruffy plants. Still, they kept talking. "He's ruining the neighborhood," they'd whisper. "Why doesn't he fix it?" Ruining the neighborhood? Me? Huh? They had no idea what was really going on. But here's the thing, and this is super important, I wasn't ignoring them because I was lazy. Nope, not at all. Everyone thought I was just some slacker who didn't care. "Oh, Jake's too lazy to mow his lawn," they'd say. "He's just sitting around doing nothing." Wrong. I wasn't sitting around. I wasn't sleeping all day or playing video games instead of working. I was busy with something big. Something secret. Something so cool it was going to blow their minds. While they were whispering and nagging, I was planning. And trust me, my plan was going to be worth all the waiting. So, what was I doing? Well, I'll give you a little peek. Late at night, when the neighborhood was quiet and everyone was asleep, I'd sneak outside. Yep, Sneaky Jake, that's me. I'd wait until the moon was up and the stars were twinkling. No one could see me, not Karen, not the neighbors, not even Mr. Jenkins with his big flashlight. I'd grab a little tape measure, you know, the kind that rolls up with a snap, and I'd tiptoe into my yard. Then I'd measure everything. How long was my lawn? How wide? How big was that patchy spot by the porch? I'd stretch the tape out, squinting in the dark, and write it all down in a tiny book. Scribble, scribble, scribble numbers and lines and little drawings. Why? Because I needed to know every inch of that yard for my big plan. I'd sit there in the dark, hiding behind my bushes, with my pencil and my book. The crickets would chirp, and the air would feel cool. Sometimes I'd hear a dog bark far away, but no one ever caught me. I was like a secret agent on a mission. My hands would get dirty from the ground, and my knees would hurt from crouching, but I didn't care. Every number I wrote down made me more excited. Every little scribble was a step closer to something huge. Karen thought I was doing nothing, but oh boy, was she wrong. I was working hard, just not in the way she wanted. Then came the really fun part, the giant delivery. One day, a big truck rolled up to my house. It wasn't a little car or a tiny van, nope, it was a huge, loud truck that rumbled like a thunderstorm. The driver hopped out and started unloading boxes. Not small boxes, either, these were giant. So big they barely fit through my gate. I had to push and pull to squeeze them into my yard. The boxes were heavy, and they made a loud thump when they hit the ground. Thump. 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 I stacked them up by my porch, grinning the whole time. What was inside? I wasn't telling, not yet. Of course, Karen saw it happen. She's got eyes like a hawk, that lady. The truck hadn't even left before she came storming over. Stomp, 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 here she comes again. Her clipboard was in her hand, and her face was all scrunched up like she'd bitten a sour lemon. Jake, she snapped, pointing at the boxes. What's in those? More junk. Junk. Huh? She thought I was just piling up trash or old stuff. She had no clue. I looked at her, standing there all mad, and I just grinned. A big, wide, sneaky grin. You'll see, Karen, I said. Just wait. Her eyes got small and squinted, like she was trying to figure me out. I don't like this, Jake, she said. I don't like it one bit. Then she turned and marched away, muttering to herself. I laughed a little as she left. She didn't like it? Good. That meant my plan was working. Karen had no idea what was coming, and neither did the neighbors. They thought those boxes were nothing special, but oh, they were so wrong. Those boxes were the key to everything. They were part of my secret weapon, the thing I'd been planning all along. And trust me, when I was ready to use it, it was going to be epic. Epic like a superhero movie or a giant fireworks show. The next day, things got even crazier. I was outside checking on my boxes when Mrs. Lopez walked by with her tiny dog. You know, the one with the bow. She stopped and stared at the boxes, then at me. What's all this, Jake? She asked. Her voice was soft, but I could tell she was curious. Oh, just some stuff, I said, keeping it mysterious. She tilted her head, like she didn't believe me, but then she smiled and kept walking. Her dog barked at me, yip, yip, and I waved. Another person wondering, another person with no clue. Then Mr. Jenkins popped out. He was watering his plants again, but he turned off the hose and shuffled over. Hey, Jake, he said. What's with the boxes? You building something? Building something? Not quite, but he was closer than Karen. I winked at him and said, maybe, Mr. Jenkins. You'll find out soon. He scratched his head, looking confused, but he laughed. You're a funny one, Jake, he said, then went back to his plants. Funny. Sure, but soon they'd see I was more than funny, I was clever. Every little moment like that made me more excited. Karen's nagging, the neighbors' whispers, the boxes piling up, it was all building up to something big. I wasn't just sitting there taking it anymore. I was moving, planning, getting ready. Late at night, I'd sneak out again, checking my measurements, tapping on the boxes, making sure everything was perfect. I'd whisper to myself, just wait, Karen. Just wait, everybody. My heart would beat fast, and I'd grin in the dark. They thought they knew me, but they didn't. They thought I'd give up, but I wouldn't. Something epic was coming, and it was almost time. So, what was in those boxes? What was my big plan? I'm not telling you everything yet, just a few more hints. It had to do with my lawn, but not in the way Karen wanted. It was sneaky, it was smart, and it was going to make jaws drop. Karen's eyes might pop right out of her head. The tension was growing, the secrets were piling up, and I was ready to shake things up. Want to know more? Hang on tight, because the best part's coming next. Okay, friends, hold on to your hats, because this is it, the big moment. After all the nagging, the notes, and the sneaky planning, the day of reckoning finally came. What's reckoning? It's like the day when everything gets settled, when the truth comes out and the fun really starts. And trust me, this day was a wild one. It happened on a quiet Sunday morning in Oakwood Heights. The sun was shining, the birds were chirping, and everything seemed calm, like a regular, boring day. But boring? Huh? Not for long. I'd been waiting for this moment for weeks. All my secret measuring, my late night scribbling, and those giant boxes, they were all leading up to this. I woke up early that Sunday, peeked out my window, and grinned. Today was the day. My plan was ready, my secret weapon was set, and I was about to surprise everyone, especially Karen Thompson, that bossy HOA lady with her clipboard. She thought she had me beat, but oh boy, was she in for a shock. Right around 10 o'clock, it happened. A truck rolled into the neighborhood. Not a little truck, nope, this was a big, noisy beast. It rumbled down the street like a giant monster, growling and shaking the ground. The sound was so loud it made the whole street wake up. People peeked out their windows, pulling back curtains and squinting to see what was going on. Kids ran to their front yards, pointing and yelling, "Whoa, look at that." Even Mr. Jenkins, the nice old guy with the plants, stepped outside with his hose still dripping, staring at the truck with big eyes. And who showed up fastest of all? You guessed it, Karen. She was there in seconds, like she'd been waiting for something to yell about. She marched over from her house across the street, her arms crossed tight over her chest. Her face was already turning pink, and her clipboard was flapping in her hand. She stopped right in front of my yard, glaring at the truck like it was her worst enemy. Then she turned to me. I was standing on my porch, sipping lemonade, and shouted, "What's this nonsense, Jake? You'd better not be up to something stupid." She started waving her finger at me, ready to yell some more. This better not be, but then she stopped. Her mouth froze mid-sentence, and her eyes got wide, like two big saucers. Why? Because right at that moment, the back of the truck opened up, and my crew jumped out. Yep, my crew. A bunch of guys in work shirts hopped down, laughing and ready to go. And what did they start unloading? Rolls of bright green artificial turf. That's right, fake grass. Big, shiny rolls of it, all green and perfect, piled up high in the truck. Karen blinked. She blinked again. She didn't know what to say. Neither did the neighbors, they just stood there, staring with their mouths open. But me? I stepped off my porch, put my lemonade down, and spread my arms wide like a king. I looked right at Karen and said, "You wanted my lawn mowed, Karen. Well, now it'll never need mowing again." Boom. There it was, the big reveal. My secret weapon wasn't a mower or a magic trick, it was fake grass that'd stay neat forever. My crew didn't waste a second. They grabbed those rolls and started working fast. They unrolled the turf, stretching it out across my yard like a giant green carpet. It went over the patchy spots, the weeds, the whole messy jungle everyone hated. Roll after roll, they covered every inch. The fake grass was so bright it almost glowed in the sun, shiny, smooth, and perfect. No more bald spots, no more spiky weeds, just green, green, green. The kids on the street started cheering, clapping their hands and jumping up and down. "Cool," they shouted. "Jake's yard looks awesome." The neighbors gasped, too. Mrs. Lopez, the lady with the tiny dog, put her hand over her mouth like she couldn't believe it. Mr. Jenkins dropped his hose and laughed, shaking his head. "Well, I'll be," he said. People started coming out of their houses, walking closer to see. Some smiled, some whispered, but everyone was watching. My yard was turning into something amazing right in front of their eyes, and they couldn't look away. But Karen? Oh, Karen didn't cheer. She didn't smile. She turned redder than a tomato, redder than the reddest apple you've ever seen. Her jaw dropped so low I thought it might hit the ground. She stood there, frozen, watching my crew roll out that fake grass. This is against the rules," she finally sputtered. Her voice was all shaky, like she was so mad she couldn't talk right. She waved her clipboard in the air, trying to look tough. "You can't do this, Jake. It's not allowed." I just grinned at her. A big, happy, sneaky grin. I walked over, nice and slow, and leaned in close. "Check the handbook, Karen," I said. "It says keep it neat. Doesn't say it has to be real grass." Her eyes got even wider, and her face went from red to purple. She flipped open her clipboard, looking at the rules, trying to find something, anything to stop me. But I'd done my homework. I'd read that HOA handbook front to back, and I knew I was right. It said yards had to be neat and tidy, and my fake grass. It was the neatest, tidiest thing around. Karen sputtered some more, flipping pages like crazy. But she said, over and over. She couldn't finish her sentence because she knew I'd won. My crew kept working, rolling, and cutting and smoothing the turf. In just a few minutes, my whole yard was covered. No more jungle, just a perfect, shiny green lawn that'd never grow, never need water, and never need mowing. I stepped back and looked at it, hands on my hips, feeling proud. It was awesome, like something out of a movie. The kids ran over, touching the fake grass with their hands. "It feels funny," one yelled. "It's so soft," said another. They started rolling down the little hill in my yard, laughing and tumbling like it was a playground. The neighbors kept whispering, but now some were nodding. "It does look nice," Mrs. Lopez said to Mr. Jenkins. "Better than before," he agreed. Even the grumpy ones couldn't argue my yard wasn't an embarrassment anymore. It was a masterpiece. Karen, though. She wasn't done yet. She stomped her foot, bam, and pointed at me. "This isn't over, Jake," she shouted. "I'll find a rule. I'll make you take it down." But her voice wasn't so loud anymore. It was shaky, weak, like she knew she'd lost. I just winked at her, yep, a big wink, and said, "Good luck with that, Karen." She huffed, puffed, and stormed off, her clipboard flapping like a sad little flag. The kids giggled as she left, and I couldn't help but laugh, too. My crew finished up, packing their tools and giving me high fives. "Great job, Jake," one said. "This looks amazing," said another. I thanked them and watched the truck rumble away, leaving my yard perfect and green. The street was buzzing now, people talking, kids playing, everyone looking at my fake grass. It was the big reveal I'd dreamed of, and it felt so good. All those weeks of planning, all those nights sneaking around, it was worth it. I turned the tables on Karen and the HOA, and they didn't see it coming. I picked up my lemonade again, took a big sip, and sat on my porch. The sun was warm, the fake grass was shiny, and the neighborhood wasn't so quiet anymore. People kept walking by, staring at my yard. Some waved, some smiled, and some just shook their heads. But me? I was happy. I'd shown them all, especially Karen, that I wasn't some lazy guy to boss around. I was Jake Carter, and I'd made my mark. What would happen next? Would Karen fight back? Maybe, but for now, I'd won. And that felt like the best victory ever. So, after the big fake grass surprise, things didn't just stop, they got even better. The next big thing was the HOA meeting. That's when all the neighbors and the homeowners association people get together to talk about rules and stuff. And this meeting? Oh boy, it was wild, like a circus with clowns and popcorn, but without the fun music. It happened a few days after my crew rolled out the artificial turf, and trust me, everyone was still buzzing about it. The meeting was in the neighborhood clubhouse, a little building with chairs and a table where the HOA bosses sit. I walked in, ready for anything. I'd been planning for weeks, so I wasn't scared, not one bit. When I stepped through the door, heads turned. People looked at me like I was a superhero or something. Some even clapped their hands, as I walked to my seat. I grinned big, like a champ who'd just won a race. My fake grass had made waves, and now it was time to see what Karen would do about it. Karen was there, of course. She sat at the front with the other HOA people, holding her precious rulebook like it was a treasure map. That book was her weapon. She thought it gave her all the power. She stood up as soon as the meeting started, her face still red from the Sunday surprise. "We need to talk about Jake Carter," she said, her voice loud and grumpy. She waved the rulebook in the air, flipping pages so fast they made a whoosh sound. "He put fake grass in his yard, and that's not allowed. We can't let this happen." The room got quiet. Everyone looked at her, then at me. I just sat there, leaning back in my chair, smiling. Karen kept going, pointing at me like I'd done something awful. "This is against the rules," she shouted. "His yard has to be real grass, it's in the handbook. We should fine him. Maybe even make him rip it all out." She huffed and puffed, her breath coming out loud and fast, like a dragon ready to breathe fire. She thought she had me trapped. She thought she'd win. But here's the thing, I wasn't worried. Not even a little. Why? Because I'd done my homework. Yep, while Karen was busy yelling and leaving notes, I'd been reading. I'd grabbed that HOA rulebook one night and sat on my couch with a flashlight, going through every page. I read all the boring stuff about trash cans and paint colors and yards. And guess what I found? The rules said every yard had to be neat and tidy. That's it. It didn't say real grass only. It didn't say no fake grass allowed. It just said neat. And my shiny, green artificial turf? It was the neatest yard around. So, when Karen finished yelling, I stood up. Nice and slow, like I had all the time in the world. The room got even quieter, everyone was watching. I held up my own copy of the rulebook, I'd brought it just for this, and said, "Karen, maybe you should read this again." I flipped to the page I'd marked with a sticky note and read out loud, super clear so everyone could hear. "Yards must be neat and tidy. That's what it says, right?" I looked around, and people nodded. Then I grinned and said, "My fake grass is neat. It's tidy. It doesn't break any rules." Karen's face went from red to white, like someone had turned off her mad switch. She grabbed her rulebook and stared at it, flipping pages again. But it's not natural," she sputtered. "It's fake." I shrugged and said, "Doesn't matter. The rules don't care if it's real or fake, just that it's neat. And look at my yard, it's perfect." The neighbors started whispering to each other. Some smiled. Some laughed a little. Karen looked like she wanted to disappear. Then Mr. Jenkins stood up. "He's the nice old guy who waters his plants, remember?" He cleared his throat and said, "I've seen Jake's yard. It looks good, better than before. I don't see a problem." Mrs. Lopez nodded, her tiny dog yipping from her lap. "It's pretty," she said. "No more weeds." Even some of the grumpy neighbors who'd called my yard a jungle started agreeing. "It's not messy anymore," one said. "Maybe fake grass isn't so bad," said another. The room was buzzing now, and it wasn't buzzing for Karen, it was buzzing for me. Karen tried one last time. She slammed her rulebook on the table, bam, and shouted, "This isn't right. We can't let him get away with this." But no one listened. The other HOA people at the table looked at each other, then at me. One of them, a guy named Bob with big glasses, spoke up. "Jake's right," he said. "The rules don't say no fake grass. We can't fine him." Karen's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again like a fish out of water. She huffed and puffed some more, but she had no power left. None. I'd beaten her with her own rules. The meeting ended with everyone talking about my yard. Some people clapped again as I walked out, still grinning like a champ. Karen sat there, staring at her rulebook, muttering to herself. She couldn't find me. She couldn't make me take the fake grass down. My lawn was neat, green, and best of all, zero maintenance. No mowing, no watering, no work ever again. I'd won, fair and square, and it felt awesome like eating a giant ice cream sundae after a long day. A few weeks later, things got even better. I was outside one morning, just chilling on my porch with my lemonade. The sun was shining, and my fake grass looked as shiny as ever. Kids were playing on it, rolling down the hill and giggling. Neighbors walked by, waving at me like I was their buddy now. "Nice yard, Jake," they'd say. "Good job." It was cool, way cooler than when they used to whisper about my jungle. Then I saw her, Karen. She was walking down the street, no clipboard this time. She stopped in front of my house and stared at my yard. Her lips were moving, like she was muttering to herself. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I bet it wasn't happy stuff. I leaned forward, waved my hand big and friendly, and called out, "Looks pretty good, huh, Karen?" Her head snapped up, and she glared at me. Her face turned pink again, and she didn't say a word. She just turned around and stormed off, her shoes stomping hard on the sidewalk. Stomp, 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 gone. I laughed so hard I almost spilled my lemonade. Karen was mad, but she couldn't do anything about it. She'd lost, and I'd won. The neighborhood wasn't her little kingdom anymore. She didn't get to boss everyone around like she used to. Turns out, one guy with a wild idea, me, Jake Carter, could shake things up big time. I'd taken her rules, twisted them, and made them work for me. My fake grass wasn't just a lawn, it was a victory. After that, life got nice and quiet. Well, mostly quiet. Kids still played on my yard, and I didn't mind. The HOA stopped bugging me. No more notes, no more yelling. Karen stayed away, probably too embarrassed to try anything else. The neighbors started treating me different, too. They'd smile and wave, like I'd earned their respect. Some even asked me where I got the fake grass. "Maybe I'll try it," Mr. Jenkins said one day. "Looks easy." I told him my secret. "Well, not so secret anymore," and he laughed. Every time I looked at my yard, I felt proud. It wasn't just about the fake grass, it was about standing up to Karen and the HOA. I'd shown them I wasn't lazy or weak. I was smart, sneaky, and brave enough to do something big. The neighborhood was different now, and I'd made it happen. One wild idea, one crazy plan, and a bunch of shiny green turf. That's all it took to turn everything around. So, there you go, justice was served. Karen didn't get her way, and I got to keep my awesome lawn. It was neat, it was green, and it was mine. I'd beaten the bossy lady at her own game, and the whole street knew it. Sitting on my porch, sipping lemonade, I'd smile and think, yep, I did that. And that, friends, felt like the best win ever. Alright, friends, we've made it to the end of this wild ride. My lawn's all shiny with fake grass, Karen's stomping off mad, and I'm sitting on my porch feeling like a winner. But before we say goodbye, I want to talk to you about something important, something that's bigger than just my yard or the HOA or even that grumpy lady with her clipboard. It's about you, me, and how we can all be awesome in our own way. So, grab a snack, sit back, and let's chat. Here's the thing, friends, sometimes the people who boss you around think they've got all the power. You know who I mean, right? Maybe it's a teacher who says, "Sit still," when you want to wiggle. Or a big kid at school who acts like they're in charge of the playground. Or, in my case, it was Karen and the HOA, telling me what to do with my own lawn. They walk around all puffed up, thinking they can make you do whatever they want. They think they're the kings or queens, and you're just supposed to nod and obey. Sound familiar? I bet it does. But guess what? They don't have all the power, not really. Nope. See, I learned something cool from this whole fake grass adventure. A little creativity, like coming up with a sneaky idea, and a lot of guts, like being brave enough to try it, can flip the whole game. Flip it like a pancake on a hot pan. I didn't just sit there and let Karen win. I didn't mow my lawn like she wanted, following her silly rules. Instead, I thought outside the box. I used my brain, made a plan, and turned my messy yard into something amazing. And in the end, I showed everyone that you don't have to do what the bossy people say to come out on top. Think about it, Karen thought she had me beat. She had her rule book, her clipboard, and her loud voice. She thought I'd give up and do whatever she told me. But I didn't. I found a way to follow the rules, keeping my yard neat without giving in to her bossiness. I used fake grass, something she never expected, and it worked. That's what creativity does, it surprises people. It makes them stop and go, whoa, I didn't see that coming. And guts? That's what kept me going. I had to be brave to order those big boxes, sneak around at night, and stand up to Karen when she yelled. But I did it, and it flipped everything around. She lost, and I won big time. So, what about you? I bet you've got some creativity and guts inside you, too. Maybe you've already used them. Have you ever outsmarted a bully or a know-it-all? Like, maybe there was a kid at school who kept taking your spot in line, and you found a clever way to get it back. Or maybe a grown-up told you something was impossible, but you tried it anyway and proved them wrong. I'd love to hear your stories. Drop them in the comments below. I'm serious, I want to know. Because every time you outsmart someone bossy or try something brave, you're doing what I did with my lawn. You're flipping the game. Let me tell you a little more about why this matters. Life can feel tough sometimes, right? People tell you what to do, where to go, how to act. They make rules that don't always make sense, like Karen saying my grass had to be real, even though fake grass looks just as good. It's easy to feel small when that happens, like you don't have a say. But here's the secret, you do have a say. You've got a brain full of ideas and a heart full of courage. You don't have to follow every silly rule or listen to every bossy voice. You can find your own way, just like I did. Take my yard, for example. It started as a mess, a big, patchy, weedy mess. Everyone hated it, especially Karen. They thought I was lazy, that I couldn't keep up. But I didn't just fix my lawn, I made it better than ever. I didn't follow their boring plan of mowing and watering forever. I came up with something new, something wild, something me. And that's what you can do, too. Maybe you're not great at something like drawing or running, but you can find a different way to shine. Maybe you make up funny stories instead of drawing pictures, or you build cool stuff instead of racing. That's creativity. And when you try it, even if it's scary, that's guts. Here's a fun thing to think about, what if I'd given up? What if I'd said, okay, Karen, you win, and mowed my lawn like she wanted? My yard would be neat, sure, but it'd be boring. I'd be stuck doing the same old thing, and Karen would still be bossing me around. But because I didn't give up, because I used my brain and my bravery, everything changed. The neighborhood isn't her little kingdom anymore. People smile at me now, not her. Kids play on my fake grass, not her real grass. One guy with a wild idea, that's me, shook things up and made them better. And you can do that, too, in your own way. Let's imagine something together. Picture a time when someone told you no, maybe they said, you can't do that, or that's not how it works. Did you listen, or did you try anyway? I bet some of you tried. Like, maybe your teacher said you couldn't build a tower out of blocks because it'd fall, but you made it work with extra glue. Or maybe a friend said you're too short to play basketball, but you practiced and scored a basket anyway. That's the stuff I'm talking about. When you don't let the no stop you, when you get creative and brave, you win, just like I did with Karen. And here's the best part, winning doesn't always mean fighting or yelling. I didn't yell at Karen. I didn't break her rules. I just found a smarter way. Sometimes being bold isn't loud, it's quiet and sneaky, like my late night measuring or my big delivery surprise. You can be bold in your own style, too. Maybe you're quiet but super smart, or loud and full of energy. Either way, you've got what it takes to flip the game when someone tries to boss you around. So, what's the big lesson here? It's simple, keep being you. Don't let anyone tell you how to live your life, not all the time, anyway. Rules are okay sometimes, like don't run in the street, but silly rules. Bossy people? You don't have to follow them forever. Use your creativity to make your own path. Use your guts to try it, even if it's scary. I didn't just fix my lawn, I showed everyone that one person can change things. And you? You can change things, to your way, your style, your ideas. I'll leave you with this, friends, next time someone acts like they've got all the power, remember my fake grass. Remember how I turned a messy yard into a big win. You've got that power inside you, creativity and guts, ready to go. Maybe it's a small win, like tricking a bully into leaving you alone. Or a big win, like making something awesome no one expected. Whatever it is, go for it. Be bold, be you, and don't let anyone stop you. Oh, and one last thing, tell me your stories. Have you ever outsmarted someone bossy? Did you use a clever idea or a brave move? Drop it in the comments, I can't wait to read them. Until next time, keep shining, keep trying, and never let the Karens of the world tell you who to be. You're awesome, and you've got this.